It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yahoo! Welcome, one and all. Today, we're doing How to Make It in the Music Business again with my dear friend and special guest, Mr. Rob Chiarelli. All right. Let me double check, make sure that we are actually on the air today and everything is going well. And there we are. Okay, we are good to go. Yay, way better than yesterday. First of all, I want to give my apologies to everybody that was tuned in yesterday. The only thing we could figure is it was YouTube. We get this like 3 times a year where stuff just happens with bandwidth. It was so bad yesterday that when I tried to log back in to get into the chat to tell you guys to go home and have some dinner, I couldn't even get back in. So we just totally lost on this end. There was nothing we could do about it. But we're back, and thank God Rob made himself available 2 days in a row. And I got to tell you, he's a busy guy, because right before we went on the air yesterday, he's the only guy I know in my entire life who conducts business in Ghana, Africa. Oops, hit my microphone. So, wow. Yeah, that's impressive, Rob. I mean, it's not Peoria.
Not really. You know, the
anyway,
world is getting smaller, my friend.
It really is. So I just want to tell these guys, because I know that you're really humble and you don't like, you don't like when I read the full thing, but Rob is a multi-Grammy-Award-winning mix engineer, producer, musician, published author with over 25 years of experience, more like 30 probably. He's played a vital role in creating over 100 gold and platinum albums and motion picture soundtracks, including numerous Grammys, which is 4. So the reason that I've got Rob on the show today, other than the fact that he's about the closest friend I've got, I think, other than my wife, and he actually likes me better than my wife. Sorry, Deb, if you're watching.
That's great. That's great.
Rob and I never put demands on each other. It's a very...
No. That's great.
Anyway, Rob and I were on like a 2.5-hour conversation the other night, and we're talking about why some people make it and some people don't. And I thought, I haven't had him on the show for a while, and I think this would make a great topic. So he agreed to talk with me about it. So let's see. Oh, I didn't prep you for this. I really didn't prep him at all. But when I think back to meeting Rob, which was a very long time ago, I lived and worked in New York, or actually I lived in New Jersey. I was working in New York City at a studio called Howard Schwartz Recording, which was on the 19th floor of the Gray Bar building right above Grand Central Station. And one day this young kid walks in and he goes, I want to record a record here. Or some demos.
You know
whatever.
How I found you?
Yellow Pages?
Yeah, Yellow Pages.
You did?
I ordered a New York version of the Yellow Page and sent it to my house. I'm like, I guess, bam.
I was being facetious. I thought it was because I was so incredibly famous at the time. Well, I'm glad you found me in the Yellow Pages.
Well, you were. I just didn't, but that's how I found you.
I didn't know that. Anyway, so this young man shows up. I'm sitting in my office about 15, 20 feet away from the lobby, and as I remember it, I hear this voice going, "Is Michael Lasko here?" And I get up out of my chair, walk out to the reception desk. "Hi, how you doing?" He goes, "Hi, my name's Rob. I'm from Boston. I saved up some money, and I want to make some demos." And I said, "Take your money and go home, kid," or something like that. This is not a wise investment. It's so many words. Anyway, I finally agreed because he was so unbelievably determined to do this project. And do you folks know, if you want to hear what dedication is, he would get on People Express Airlines
$19, Boston, Logan to
Newark. That's right. He would get on the plane with his entire drum kit in the trap cases
and a guitar and a bass.
Right. So he had all this stuff. I mean, he had his kick drum, his snare drum, his tom-tom. everything. And wow, speaking of yellow, I'm turning yellow. There I go. Anyway, he would get into the Port Authority, which is on the west side of Manhattan, come off, he would get on the airplane, get on a bus, take about a 40-minute bus ride into New York City, get off the bus in one of the most dangerous buildings you can be in New York City, and then push this load of stuff on its casters across the entirety of Manhattan to go from the west side to the east side, and then come up 19 stories in an elevator to work with me on this project. And when we were done at the end of the night, he would take that stuff and go back to Boston with it, and then come back again 4 or 5 days later and do it all over again. So if you ever...
It's funny, I didn't realize, what a young person is capable of doing. You look back at it, and I don't know if it's just, stupidity or... Yeah. I don't know the right word for it, but,
stupidity,
that's true.
Stupidity that led to dogged determination, and actually showed your true colors, because part of the reason that I kept working with you is I thought, I can't let this kid down, man. If he's pushing this stuff, coming all the way from Boston on an airplane, on a bus, and then pushing it across like 8 city blocks of Manhattan, you could have been killed in the Port Authority, or you could have easily been mugged.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
And I didn't tell you because you were a paying customer.
No, I didn't know I could give. I didn't know it was dangerous. Yeah, I had no idea. Man. I'm just, whatever. This just funny. Yeah.
It was dangerous.
That was fun. Yeah,
and fun stuff. And then as we grew closer and we were making real progress, I started flying up to Boston. I would finish work at 6 o'clock in Manhattan, take a bus out to Newark Airport, get on a flight at 7:30. Rob would pick me up at Logan Airport. We'd go grab a sandwich. And then we were working in the studio where the Cars did all their records. They actually owned it. It was called Synchro Sound, right?
That's right. Synchro Sound Studios on Newbury Street, right across from E. Wurlitzer in those days. Yep.
I remember that. I did not like that room. I remember the control room looked down into the studio, right?
That was a weird room, But we got it done, We got it done.
We did. We had fun working together, but as I've said before on the show, it was kind of like when you have a kid and you can see certain personality traits in your kid, even when they're 6 months old or 2 years old, and they grow into those personality traits. I could see that in Rob. And one of the traits that I saw was every time I moved an equalizer 1 click, Rob would stick his head over my shoulder and go, "Why'd you do that?" And if I added, adjusted a reverb send, Rob go, "What were you doing there? Why'd you do that?" And he asked questions about everything. At first I thought he was a pain in the butt, but then I realized, no, he's just a kid that wants to understand why everything is happening. Part of what a lot of my professional engineer brethren did, and people probably still do, is they love the smoke and mirrors aspect. It's magical when you sit down in front of a massive recording console and you're tweaking and hitting and moving and people are watching going, ooh, ah. Rob and I know it's really just like adjusting 48 stereos, because it's just bass, treble, mid-range, pan left, pan right, add reverb, add delay, and you're done, right?
Yeah, that's all it is. And let's wrap the show right there.
So anyway, now I've told you the story about Rob's dedication, but then years later,
let's go on to something interesting. I can't take it anymore. Come on.
Let me just tell this part, because people have asked me this before. I know Rob hates talking about himself, but suck it up, Rob. I get a call one day. And it's Rob, and he goes, "Hey, you remember me? It's Rob Chiarelli. I'm at LAX. I'm moving out here. I'm at the car rental place. Can I take you to lunch?" And I said, "Yeah." "You're moving out here?" He goes, "Yeah, I want to get a job as an engineer. I want to work in a studio." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Do you know anybody?" And I said, "Yeah, I can make a couple calls." I was already in the audio post world, kind of out of the record world.
Sunny Blue Skies. You called Sunny Blue Skies.
Blue Skies, that's right.
Can't forget that name.
Nope, and he still calls himself Sunny Blue Skies. His real name
that's his name.
Yeah, well, no, I know what his real name was. I probably
Oh,
shouldn't say publicly because he doesn't like that. But anyway, Rob drove out to Woodland Hills. We went to lunch at a sushi restaurant, and here's what a menschy guy he is. I don't think there's anything Rob Chiarelli hates as much as sushi or fish.
mayo.
Oh,
I'm mayo
really?
and sushi. Oh, no. I mean, no, man. There's no sushi. Is no bueno. I can't do it.
And
No.
so he took me to a sushi restaurant to pick my brain. How do I get my foot in the door? And a couple weeks later, I get a call from Rob, and he said, I got myself a job at Paramount. And I went, Paramount Studios, thinking like Paramount Pictures. And he goes, no, Paramount Recording Studio, which is like at the time, like the big hip hop studio in town, right?
Yeah, they did everything. Santa Monica
But
Boulevard. Still love those guys. Still talk to them.
yeah,
Really still pretty close. Yeah, good guys.
and you started out not unlike I did at Criteria. You were the bottom guy, on the food chain, and before I know it, you weren't the bottom guy anymore, and you moved up the ladder fairly quickly.
No, I got lucky. I got lucky.
Yeah,
everyone
but
was out of town on July 4th weekend, and I stuck around. I was ready to go home. I was broke. I was hungry. And, as luck would have it, Jay King had fired everybody, and I was the only guy left.
wow. And
I
did
mean,
you actually know how to run a console at all?
Well, yeah, I knew how to do it. I mean, you listen, I picked your brain enough. No, but I knew how to do it because I had done it, before. I knew what I was doing, but, he and I hit it off, and we've been fast friends ever since, and he's really the guy that gave me my big break, and that's how it was. It was everybody else was off cooking burgers, and I stuck around, and I just got, but for the grace of God, I say it all the time, and I believe that, it's God has a hand in all of these things, call it what you will, but that's what I call it.
Wow. Well,
But anyway,
yeah,
enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Well, I was astonished by watching you quickly move up the ladder, work on really big records in fairly short order. And so you've been around a lot of people who have either been a success when you started working with them, and I'm sure you've worked with others that were not a success in the beginning. Maybe it was their first album on a label, and they were kind of feeling their way through it. So let's start out with a positive first. Can you give some examples of traits that you've seen in people that have been successful?
I'll tell you, I sure can. I can talk for hours about it. And
Good.
I can,
Less work for me.
Huh? Yeah. So the first person, well, there are many people that come to mind, but in this moment, the person that comes immediately to my mind is Robin Thicke. And, I haven't really done work with Robin in quite a while, but when he was young, okay, we worked quite a bit together, and he would always come in with demos, and he was a teenager at the time, I would say, maybe 17, something like that. If I could have it wrong, but I think that he was a really good guy. And, very talented. And I remember he came in one time, and the record was so good. And I said to him, man, this is tremendous, something like that. And he said, not yet. He said, I'm getting there, and I have a ways to go still. And I'll never forget that line. I may have a word wrong, but it was basically that. And I remember thinking, oh boy, this guy is really in pursuit of excellence. And I never forgot. I've told that many times to people because it struck me that as good as it was, he was in pursuit of something more, So I thought that was, that's a thing that I've always, kind of kept. And I saw that in Richard Perry when I worked with him, on the Ray Charles project. He was endlessly trying to get it better, right? He was in pursuit of something and wouldn't quit. And I've seen that I saw that in Ice Cube 2 years ago, and I saw that in Will Smith, and I saw that in everybody. that I would say had a particularly successful career. So that is one element. Even when it's amazing, there's still the pursuit of trying to be better. Now, cut to maybe 3 years ago or so, I was at the Grammy Museum, and on the wall that day was a Taylor Swift exhibit. And I love Taylor Swift. I don't know her or anything, but there was a small little 2-minute video of her, and they asked her a great question. I'll never forget it. They said, "What are you trying to do in this album that you didn't do in the last album? Like, what's your goal?"
Yeah.
And some people might say, well, I want it to be a little bit richer. I want it to be a little more of me. I want it to be, there's a million ways you could answer the question. But what she said was, I want it to be better than the last one. I'm trying to make my new record, a little better than the last one, something like that. And I thought, wow, there it is again. That same idea. We're going to just get a little bit better today. And then, this comes up all the time with people, whomever I work with. Nate and Kaylee, same idea. We're going to just try to get 1% better today. At the end of the year, we'll be 365% better. And actually, if you want to use compound interest, it's even more than that. But the idea, these little small steps that we take really do have a big impact over years and years. And every day I try to do something, better than the day before. Everything I try to do better. That's the goal, I guess. So that's one thing that stuck out to me.
Do you ever have moments of self-doubt?
Every day. Every day.
I mean, I know you well enough. Again, I think you and I, in some regards, know each other as well as our wives know us. I mean, we've been close friends now for a very long time.
In some ways, not every way.
Right, not every way, not that way, just saying. But I know that you are very picky. You're not unreasonable, but you are exacting. And I'm going to give an example. Probably 5-6 years ago now, you and I, we were planning to have, you were doing a version of my daughter Hannah's song on stage with Nate and Kaylee and the whole band, taking it from demo to done. That's what we called it. The amount of time that you spent prepping for that and getting ready for it and asking the same questions over and over and putting together a team and having me come over to your house and meeting about it, I went, wow. I thought that I was the kind of person, I was trained as an engineer, always have a backup, That's what yesterday really upset me because I don't have a backup for bandwidth on YouTube. But in an audio situation, in a lot of situations, I think almost militaristically, and I see that in you. And I think it's hard for people who are creative types to also have that pursuit of excellence to the point of annoying themselves, which you and I both do. No other input can come at us. We need to focus and be singular in our focus and go through that mental checklist of all the things that we know that need to be right. And doing that, other things will show up in the list. So I see that in you, and I know... Yeah, go ahead.
The thing is you and I think, we've been as close as can be for years. And I think I learned a lot from you, and you actually touched on it earlier. You said that you didn't want to let me down. And I think that's a lost idea. And the idea, when you want to talk about the taxi, the thing that we prepared for, that was tricky because I didn't want I wanted folks to be able to come in there and play the song, but I didn't go through the details with them like I did with you. See, I didn't want to let you down. I don't want to let the taxi members down. We're going to be up there and we want to really give them the honest, unvarnished truth about things. We really want to present it in a way that it's simple enough to get, but, it can really get deep if we wanted to. And I didn't want to fail at that. And I don't want to fail and let someone down on their mix or their production or anything else. And that's, that's one of the things for me that I think, I don't think about that anymore, but my dad, he was a World War II Marine, and he had a certain discipline, that I think he passed along. And I see that in the people that I get to work with. I can give endless examples, but the guy that comes immediately to mind is Kirk Franklin and his commitment to excellence. 24/7, 365. Kirk Franklin, the sounds, the choices, the arrangements, that kind of thing is, part of it, I suppose, is maybe within you to begin with, but it's developed, and it's like any other skill. It takes discipline and commitment and the other things. And in order to get a really true record, I mean, something that's really good, I think everybody involved has to have the same sort of level of commitment. And that's scary, especially when you said earlier, yeah, sure, I have self-doubt. Every day I wonder if the choices I make are good. But at a certain point, I think you have to trust it. You have to trust the process and the instincts and things like that. And at some point, you do have to print. You have to roll credits. You have to move to the next song. You can't, I'll tell you a funny story. There's a kid that I've known forever, and he was actually the first guy that I signed to my label back in 2020 or 2017 or something, when I had a deal with BMG and Red Ant. And he was working with a guy, and the guy was playing me his demos, and I said, wow, this sounds good. How long have you been working on these? He said, 2 years. I said, 2 years? I mean, okay, but there is a limit to things here, I can't mix a song for 2 years. I mean, maybe I get 2 days or something, or 2 hours in some case. But you can't beat a horse to death either. There's a point where, you have to refine your skills and work through the process, and at some point, you need to move on. You need to get to the next thing and get more information and develop and refine the process or whatever it may be. 2 years, I still remember thinking, wow, there are songs I've written 2 years ago or 20 years ago, but I couldn't tell you what they are because, they're sitting in somewhere and they're staying there. I'm not going to spend 2 years on that. That can't happen. So the point is there is a point of diminishing returns, I say.
There's last year at the beginning of the Road Rally, which, by the way, is coming up November 5th, 6th, and 7th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So don't forget, my wife told me before I went on the air today, don't forget to mention the Road Rally. There you go, Deb. I did my job. But last year, I had Stephen Pressfield on, and he was talking about Seth Godin, who's probably the best known writer of marketing books in the last 10 or so years. And Seth Godin has a phrase, it's exactly what you're talking about, which is at some point you just have to ship it, meaning you got to get it out the door.
Yeah, you got to go to market at some point. It's got to be released. You have to, and this is, that's really, let me add to that, because you just made me think of something which I think may resonate with writers and producers of Taxi, and that is, it is a scary thing to say it's done and put it out in the world. And you know why? Because you're going to get judged on it, and that's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for everybody. And I don't know that there's a way around that. Even records that, I did a record a year ago that and it was just a fun thing that I set out to do. But then I thought, well, I kind of like this really good, and I start to get invested a little more into it. Meaning, the passion started to, kick in, and then it came time to release a song, and I got sweaty, and I'm nervous, and next thing I went, wait a second, this started as a fun thing, and I had to check myself and say, what, it's cool, do it, and you let go at some point, and you got to just let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes you can tweak the hell out of a record and tweak the life out of it too. And it's a dance, right? It's a weird thing. It's really hard. And I don't know if other people feel the same way out there, but
I think a lot of people do. I think that's one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest roadblocks to success is that people don't pull the trigger and shoot the bullet, figuratively speaking, because you're absolutely right. Once they do, then they can be judged. If I talk about, I'm going to have a great mix. Once I get this new piece of outboard, or I'm going to finish my record as soon as my new keyboard comes in, and there's always a reason that they don't finish. To me, it's been so obvious throughout my entire career that you are right on the money in saying, if you don't release it, people can't critique it or criticize it. And I give Taxi members a ton of credit for being heroic because they're constantly sending their music in knowing that it's going to be critiqued by the screeners. That takes bravery.
And that takes a lot of courage. It really does. And the idea, but the other side of that coin is, but if you don't send it out, then you're never going to get feedback. You're going to live in your own little echo chamber. And guess what? You can't win either. I mean, if you don't swing the bat, if you don't run the bases, it's kind of tough. It really is. I mean, then maybe it's not that important, or maybe something else might be at play, and that's something that I had to consider, right? We always have Ron Harris uses a great phrase, we all have that come to Jesus moment, do I want to do this? Am I really committed to it? Do I want to pay? Am I willing to pay the price? Am I going to expose my voice and my talents like that to ridicule perhaps, or to, criticism that can be harsh? That's really, and I'm a behind the scenes guy, and it affects me. Imagine if I'm on the cover of the record, or if it's the artist, these become very, those things are forever, forever joined, and it's hard to separate those. And I understand that. And I think for that reason, it's taken years to really see it, but I've grown a lot once I realized that. And I have to, be considerate of those emotions and things when I'm cutting a vocal or producing an artist. I think those things maybe took me a minute longer than they should have for me to really see them in the right context. You know what I'm saying? The intensity that those feelings can bring in an artist or a writer, that's on the front lines of it all,
I found that as an engineer when I was working in the capacity of just being there to push buttons and be a technical guy, a creative technical guy. When it came to lead vocal time, no matter what level the artist was, if you're sitting in that chair moving the fader, especially when the producer goes out to make a phone call or hit the restroom or something, they still need that sounding board, and they look at you because you're on the other side of that glass sitting behind the console. And you have to have this advice, but you can't give the advice unless you've internalized it and experienced it. Otherwise, it's not believable.
And it comes with experience. Many years ago, I'm looking on the wall here, and it was Johnny Mathis. So I got called near Christmas to work with Johnny Mathis.
Perfect. That doesn't even sound believable. It's so perfect.
Right, it's so perfect. But it was near Christmas, and for whatever reason, producer of couldn't make it. Jay Landers was the brilliant A&R guy involved in that project, and he he asked me to go down and cut Johnny's vocals. So here I am, me and oops. The door. Okay, thank you. People are walking around now. So here I am, and Johnny is on the other side of the glass, and he's, he says, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, "What? Oh man, take me now, Lord!" Right? Here's Johnny Mathis asking me my opinion. And it's happened for years in my career, but there are certain moments that it's like, wow, I better be really thoughtful here. Before I put my foot in my mouth, and and maybe that was a moment that I, and it all went, really, really, really well. And it was a great learning experience because there are some people that that you're in the room with, and you may pause a moment before you do say something. You want to say the right thing at the right time, and there are moments when I have or I haven't, but that's important. The communication with the artist, and in the idea that we're all really part of the same. We're all sort of pieces of. You know, we're all steps along the way to bring this home. And I'm just one of them. Whether I'm a mixer or a producer or an engineer or whatever the case may be, there's a lot of people that go into making a hit record. Marketing, promotion, A&R, right? So we're all really setting out for the same goal, and as long as we're all, one thing I've found is that if everybody's dedicated to that, and usually you get pretty good results. If we're all trying to serve the song and the artist and that whole thing, and really, really doing our best and pursuing and doing our very best, then it's usually pretty good. But every now and then there's, and maybe we should talk about that. There are those telltale signs, that maybe someone's not willing to give that 104%.
It's the difference between the freshman record and the sophomore record, meaning that acts that just got signed, they come in, they're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. They've got that vote of confidence that a label just advances some money to go make this record. We got a producer whose name we've seen on 1 million albums. And here we are, everybody's showing up, and they are focused like 6 battleships, all focusing at the same point on the horizon. Then they make a record, it goes platinum. They're a hit. They're out on tour supporting that record. They're doing all kinds of fun stuff, if you get my drift, on the road, and their egos get bigger and bigger. Everybody loves me. I've watched this about 6 times. They come back for the next record about 2.5 years later. They walk in the room, they dress differently, they stand differently, their body language is different. Everything about them is different. And now, rather than 6 people all pointed at the same target, you've got 6 people who are all thinking about me, and you watch the record start to go to hell in a handbasket from the minute they enter and do the load-in on the first day. It's heartbreaking.
Well, in that case, it's probably the pressures of touring and the distractions and everybody pulling at them where, before it was a real, centered and focused thing, a lot of, and then changes and people change, many things could happen in many ways, and I see though with, I've seen oftentimes, people aren't willing to do the work anymore. Now, I don't want to say anymore, but, people sometimes just don't want to do the work, Sometimes you got to stay till 4 in the morning. Sometimes, you got to do it.
Sometimes you have to work 7 days a week.
Sometimes. It's every time. I can't think of when I don't work 7 days a week. I still work 7 days a week. Maybe I'll have a vacation and I'll be gone for a few days, but no, music is funny because there's always something to write. There's always something that can be a little better. You can always put an extra hour or 2 into it. It's not like, I don't know. It's not like making an ice cream cone. You put it, there's the scoop and you serve it. It's not like that. There's, production and songwriting is always on your mind. Like you think of a lyric and you want to try it. You thought that song was done, but then, you try something new. Or you listen back after being away from it. You get a fresh, how many people have listened to a song they thought was done, they listen fresh and, oh, wow. It really does need some strings or something in the bridge. There's always that little piece. So,
right.
I feel like, anyway, coming back to the question, I feel like nobody said it was easy, and it isn't. and it's a ton of work. It's a lot of work, and you got to be willing to do it. You got to put those hours in, and you're not. I've never felt that I'm entitled to anything at all. I feel like I got to earn it every day. And if you listen to, of course, to me, the greatest quarterback ever is Tom Brady. And he says this over and over. Every day he's afraid he's going to lose his job. Well, so am I. Every day I'm really doing my best to try to, to bring everything I can to a project. And I think that's the idea that I see, or that's the piece that I see in a lot of successful people. It's that pursuit of excellence, and it's the commitment to doing it. And nobody's really trying to get out the door early. They leave when the job is done, when they got the most they can out of the day, or the time that they have, or whatever it may be.
I saw that in my early studio training at Criteria. I saw it at Howard Schwartz Recording. Nobody ever looked at the clock. Nobody thought about what the state law mandated for a lunch hour, and nobody ever took a lunch hour. Right, but you got to, but you have to go with that stuff under it's mandated state law, certainly here in California and plenty of other states.
So let me see if I got this right. So, Eric Clapton, right, he was known for doing great records at Criteria. So hold on, Eric, sorry, I know you're in the middle of this solo. I gotta get my coffee break right now. I'll be back in about 15.
Right.
I just can't see it, it doesn't happen.
If I had said that, or anybody else in the room would have said that, you wouldn't work on the rest of that record or the next one. Something you said a minute ago about you just got to do the work. I've told people this. I'm not sure it sinks in, but it's such a simple concept. Less wishing and more doing will get you there. People wish, they hope, they see other people, and then envy creeps in. Envy is, I'm guilty of that. We're all guilty of looking at somebody else's something and going, man, I'd love to have that. And my accountant once said to me, rent it. Hey, nice.
I figure I'm going to change glasses every 30 minutes or so. So
there you go.
And I'll tell you, when Nate and Kaylee and I started working together, for those who know the Highfields and their brilliant work, we weren't successful right off the bat, but we would get together, and we still get together just about every Monday. We call them My Time Mondays. We get together, we talk about business. We usually watch a music movie. It's a great 6-part series that we started watching with McCartney and the Beatles. That's out on
Hulu, right?
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
We watched the first 3 last week, but so we would get together and would wonder, why nobody's picking up the songs, and what we started doing with one another is to say, what the reason is? It's not them, it's us. We need to get better. And the fact of the matter is, we can point the finger and say, well, you guys at Taxi, or you guys at Crucial, or Peer, or any of these companies, you don't like our records, and you guys don't know what. Yeah, well, actually they do know what they're doing. Sony didn't want to take my song or something. Well, they do know what they're doing. Maybe the idea is just like, you got to be so persistent, and you got to improve your craft so much. Maybe the answer is, we just got to commit to be better, and every day we got to get better. And it comes back to that same thing. And with us, we wouldn't ever say, it's them. We'd always say, what, the reason we haven't gotten any cuts is because we got to get better. And we just got to get better. We're working and getting better, and eventually something's going to happen, and something will break, eventually.
That's a very, very grown-up attitude. Wow, that you guys recognize that, acted on it. Most of us aren't strong enough. We were grown-ups.
We weren't kids at the time.
I know, even as grown-ups, look, it's so much easier to blame external anything, whether it's people or situations. It's so much easier to go, well, this didn't work out because. So wow, that was, and there you go. And you guys have been very successful in what you do. You're honest with yourself. It's so easy. I don't want to be a therapist. God only knows I'm not qualified to do it. But It's so easy to blame others, and it's so easy to not be in control of your own destiny. And you can let go of that control by blaming all those external forces. It's
And that's easy
COVID.
to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy because then it's not you. That's not your fault. But then there's no accountability either. And I think to me it's a much simpler process to just understand, like, and maybe this is my dad in me, or my mom, or you, or many of the mentors that I've had in my life. Reggie Calloway, and I say this at least 3 times a week. When I met him in 1989, I would always pick people's brains, just like you, because I'm a sponge for this, especially people that I don't even know what they're going to say sometimes. I have no idea. With Reggie, I asked him, do you have any advice for a young kid? And he said, you need to know 3 things. He said, number 1, you need to know what you want. He said, most people don't. And I thought that was stunning. He said, number 2, you have to decide and determine if it's attainable. And I said, well, that's easy for me, because if anyone's done it before, then it's got to be attainable. So he said, well, okay. Then number 3, he said, you got to be willing to pay the price. Now, the price might be money, the price might be time, the price might be sacrificing, girlfriends or whatever it may be in your life. But there are sacrifices that come with this. And we all know in this business, a friend of mine, Manny, did he's like a Hall of Fame guy, mixer guy. He did a seminar, and I heard him say, this isn't as glamorous as people think. This is long hours in the studio. There's a lot of that people maybe don't see, And I thought, you know what, right on, and that's the stuff that's the grind of it, That's the grind. And when we were at the Grammys a couple of years ago, somebody won, and they said, this is for everybody out here that's been grinding it out. And I remember that word, grind, and that's what we're doing. We're grinding it out every day. So you got to know what you want. You got to decide or determine if it's, attainable, and you got to be willing to pay the price. And the price is high in music, and it's just, and it's. I don't think that price is ever fully paid. I think that's a tough part of it, because we're always working and working and working to try to become better. And it's not so easy. That part isn't easy. And knowing what you want was hard for me. I loved playing sports. I loved playing, I'm really a bass player, but I started on the drums, and I was pretty good on the drums, and I could play the bass, and went to school and studied, and then I wanted to be in a band, and then I wanted to do live sound, and then I wanted to do production, and then I wanted to do engineering. I enjoyed too many things, so it was hard for me to let go of things that I enjoyed. And then, and this was before Reggie told me that bit of wisdom. But now I look back and I realize, wow, that is wisdom, because part of the price I had to pay was leaving home, putting myself in a place to succeed, because back then there was no internet and stuff, I had to be in LA. Part of it was leaving my girlfriend. Part of it was, sacrificing and living basically on the street for a while, and, knocking on doors and taking the rejections. That's all part of the price that we pay. And I'm no different than anybody else. And every day I wake up with the same concerns and fears that, hey, maybe today, maybe I'm not going to be good enough, but I'm gonna die trying. I'm gonna give it everything I can, and by the way, that wears you out too. So it's all part of that thing, that we have to deal with in the business.
And there's the trade-off between providing for your family and being with your family. That's yes. The one thing I look back at and go, I'm never sure if I've made the right choice, but partially because of the way I was raised, the family I grew up in, it's the man's responsibility to provide well for his family, and not just for today or tomorrow, but what happens if you drop dead of a heart attack at 64 years old? Is your family going to have to leave the house that's their cocoon? So I've always opted to work really, really hard. And my family has suffered. Well, if you call not being with me suffering. And recently, I was out of town with my family for 5.5 weeks, and I was working instead of my typical 10 or 12 or 14 or more hours a day on taxi 7 days a week. I was doing 5 days a week, about 6 hours a day. And my wife was telling this story the other night. She said, Michael, the whole time we were all together, the kids kept saying, "What's with Dad? He seems happy." They've never seen me relaxed.
That, right?
Yeah.
But that's a great point. I mean, it's different for everybody, of course. But for me, you know, it's an individual thing. But for me, it's I don't know what kind of wretch I might be if I wasn't doing music. But this isn't for everybody. You know, this isn't. You know, I've heard the expression that music calls you. You don't. Music picks you. You didn't pick music. You know.
Right.
And music kind of picked me, and it's just something that I had to do, and I have to continue to do it. It's almost like, I guess, a shark keeps swimming. Call it what you will, but I just have to do it. I don't even know too many things that would make me as happy as I am, you know, when I'm working on music. And my family and friends have been so supportive of me through the ups and downs, and even as a kid, you know, been so supportive. I am really, really blessed. I've been really, really lucky to have supportive parents, family, friends who would always come out and see the band play or hang out and, you know, do stuff. And I was, you know, remember Bill Garside from back in the day, right? So Bill, when I moved to California, everybody told me I would be a failure. They said, "You'll be back in a few weeks. You know, there's no chance." I mean, everybody told me that. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I didn't even tell my mother I was moving till about the day beforehand, and my brother I didn't tell either. Right? So my family, I just, for whatever reason, I was maybe frightened to tell them. But I had made my decision. I talked to my friends and others, and everybody told me I was going to fail, except for Bill. And Bill gave me the best piece of advice in the history of the world. And he said to me, well, I got one other good piece of advice. He said, "Rob, if you meet good people, you'll be fine." I mean, the wisdom in those words. You know.
Wow.
And when I came out here, you know, I called you and I called one other person that I knew was out here, and I gotta say, is goofy as it sounds, that's the story of my life. You know, if I can, you know, be around good people, you know, I'll be all right. You know, and I think that's the best thing I can say to anybody, is, you know, because it's tricky out here. There's a lot of traps, you know, but if you meet good people, you will be okay, you know. I believe that. And the other piece that I got from another guy, you know, he said to me, "You know what, look at it this way, you know, go ahead out there. What's the worst that could happen? You come back with some knowledge." And I thought, wow, that's another great morsel to hold on to, you know, and I hold on to these little trinkets because they're gems, you know. Okay, so you gave it a try. There's no shame in that. You gave it a try. You released the song. So you learn from the experience. You move forward. That's all you can do. The idea that I'll come back, maybe things won't go my way. I can accept that if I give it a try. And I'll maybe come back with some knowledge. I thought that was the experience. I thought, well, that's fair. Can't ask for too much more than that, right? And I don't know how many people really can. When you try to do something new, it's scary. You want to do an EP? Well, do it. What's the worst that can happen? Someone doesn't like it. Well, someone's not going to like it. I mean, you know, some people don't like, you know, Off the Wall. Some people don't like Thriller. I mean, some people don't like, you know, Pink Floyd. It is what it is. You know, just accept it. It's cool, but do it and keep moving forward, you know. Keep moving forward. another thing I tell people, which I hate to get into the quote thing, but what the hell, we're talking like we always talk, right? So
Yeah.
there's this great, when I made my kids watch Rocky maybe 5 years ago, and I think it's one of the great movies of all time. So there's this scene when Rocky realizes, he's in the apartment with Adrian, and he said to her, I can't do it. There's no way I can win. But when that bell rings at the end of the 15th round, if I'm still standing, I will have won. Said words to that effect. The goal was to go the distance. And every time I see that scene, I think how wonderful it is. Because his goal is to go the distance. The winning and losing was secondary to him because the odds were so stacked against him. And in this business, that's another maybe trinket. Go the distance. See the project through. And at the end, if you're still standing, you're proud of what you did, which I think is tied to this idea of going the distance and still be standing, meaning doing your best. Wow, to me, that's really a powerful idea, and I love it. In fact, as I talk about it, my heart goes faster, and I feel like, give me the gloves, baby, Rocco, we're gonna crop thunder. Let's do it. Yeah.
Cut me, Mick.
Yo, Mick, but I ain't got no locker, Mick. What's the talent?
Oh, God, I've known you for so long. I've never seen you do that, ever. I've never seen you do an impersonation. That's awesome.
If you can catch the chicken, you got speed. You got lightning speed.
Well, now I know what we're doing.
Very dangerous thing.
Now I know what we're doing for entertainment on the next New Year's Eve when we get together. So, something important that a lot of people don't realize is that success and failure are not an either or binary thing, that there are different degrees of success. And a lot of times I feel bad because I think I'm constantly stressing with taxi members, do this to be successful. If you do more of that, you can be successful. Some people don't want the level of success or the kind of success that their fellow members have. Some people are older. They might be in their 60s like I am, and they're going, I don't think it's realistic for me to make $200,000 or $300,000 grand a year.
Some people could be in their 30s like I am.
That's right. How do we look that never mind. Anyway, and I feel bad. So my apologies to anybody that I've ever made feel bad that I put that trip on you like a bad parent, that everybody has to make a few $100,000. For some people, who really woke me up to this was one of our members, Casey Hurwitz. I just interviewed him for the June newsletter, did a video interview. Casey's had, 20, 30 placements over a 10-year career, 15 years, whatever. He makes good money being a computer programmer, writing code, building websites, whatever he does. And he does the music thing because he loves to make music. He's never really gotten good on a workstation. He's not a technical guy, but he's good with words and melody. And he finds himself taxi members to pair up with that collaborate. And every now and then they come up with something really good, and a library takes it, and it ends up getting a nice placement. And he's very, very happy with that level of success. Maybe he makes a few hundred or a couple $1,000s a year. I don't know, whatever. It's not a lot of money. It's certainly not a six-figure income. The personal satisfaction he gets from sitting with his wife, maybe his kids on the couch, and going, you know what? I did that. That song came from inside of me, and now 2.7 million people are seeing it on this TV show. So success is different things to different people. Do you have any advice on how to
Yes.
decide what your level is and how to be honest with yourself about what your level is and sticking, to that goal?
Maybe not that precise answer, but I have a thought that came immediately to mind when you were talking about that. And the idea that everybody has a different goalpost. We're all looking for different things, and we have to have a balance in our life that works for us, right?
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to do. So when we signed this terrific talented guy's named Seth to our company, and even with Nate and Kaylee, I'll go back with them. We met a while back, years ago, with a manager, and he said, well, what are your goals for this year? And I said, I want to place one song. And he said, come on, we can do better than that. And I said, hey, I want to place one song. Let's start right there. Because if you place that first one, all sorts of things come into play. You get that one song, okay, now let's set our sights on another. Then you get two, and you set your sights maybe on another. But you got to focus on the simplest, most attainable. You have to know what it is that you want. Place one song. Is it attainable? It's only one. It's got to be attainable. Is it willing to pay the price? I think I can pay that price. Maybe I'm not willing to pay the price to do this 24/7, 365 in place 100 songs, right? So now we're putting this into like a box that's digestible to me.
Right.
And I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted the goal to be attainable. One song. One song. Let's place one song. Let's start right there. And then, we'll work on maybe placing another one. And when you do place that song, something really powerful happens. And, I'm going to tell you how the My Time Mondays start. So every Monday, except for the COVID time, for 10 years or so, Nate, Kaylee, and I get together. And Mondays were to celebrate the friendship, talk about business, and just relax for a few hours together, enjoy one another's company. But that started because we got a placement. We got a placement, and the first one we did was for Vagisil. Okay, so
I remember that.
And the hilarious thing is, Kaylee's dad said, "Should I go buy some? Should I go buy some? Would that help you guys?" And she's like, "No, Dad. Like that's." I get this picture of him coming out of Target with a big thing full of, So it was a small placement, but in that moment, right, they knew they could do it. It just took the little thing, It only took somebody that they didn't know to tell them they were good, Just somebody that's willing to pay a little something for that song. And then all of a sudden, so you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we can do another one. Let's work at that second one. Then you get a second one. It's like, well, wait a second. Maybe we're onto something. And this feels kind of good, So it starts with one. It doesn't start usually with 15 or 20 or 100. It starts with one.
Did you ever have a dip after that first one? I've seen that with taxi members. They get a few forwards, then they finally get a placement, and then they hit a dip, and they go, "Oh, I thought it was just going to be, a 45-degree angle up," and it's not. It's like up and then back down and then up.
Absolutely, dips in your career, dips in your writing, self-doubt. People tell, just the other day, someone told one of my artists, that the song they didn't think it was good for them to sing, and then all the self-doubt comes in. Like, what are you listening to them for? I mean, you got to block that stuff out. You got to follow what you believe is true for you, and don't let those distractions, because those distractions can give you that dip. It can be an emotional dip. It can be, you can get in a rut for any little thing, right? That's why we try to be sensitive in the studio and make sure that it's a comfortable environment. It's not because everybody's a prima donna. It's just the idea is we're trying to create an environment, and we're trying to keep the level high. And in dips in the career and in songwriting and placing happens every time. Absolutely. There's ups, there's downs, and you know what? When you have a down, you know what you do? You may reevaluate. And you ask yourself, what did I do different here, if anything? And if you feel like, the work is there, but maybe the timing is wrong, then it's okay. I'll tell you something else, because there are dips. Now I'm going to switch my glasses again. So
You're there are 1 minute late. That was at 5:01.
Pretty close, though. I was late on the first switch. But so the idea, though, is, you have... I have good partners, and I have a good support structure. And even with business stuff, I call you all the time. What do you think of this? You called me the other day for a business thing. And we brainstorm together. We put our heads together, and we try to figure out, are we missing anything?
For 2.5 hours straight. Yeah.
What's that?
What?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said we brainstormed for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and you have to have a support structure. Every time at Taxi, I talk about the same thing. That's really important. Because you know what? Somebody may notice something that maybe you don't notice. Right. But that doesn't mean everybody has a valid opinion. But the idea being, okay, so, you might have a down period. But I will tell you, one of the down periods in my life was 2006 and 2007. Digital came in. A lot of A&R guys got fired. It was a tough time for a lot of people, And that was the time I met Nate and Kay. I met Nate at that time. Okay, I met some other people, and I didn't realize it, but that was actually a really high point. It just felt like a low point. And some songs that I wrote back in, let's just use Nate and Kaylee for an example. There's songs that we wrote 5 years ago that we thought we'll never, we just gave up on, but they're out there. And we get a call saying it got placed, got put in a TV show or using a commercial or something. We're like, wow, maybe the timing just wasn't right for it. So you can't let that stuff affect you too much, as long as, your ship is headed to the right port, as long as you're on course, So maybe that's the thing I'd want to share, is to say, just keep your, don't get, boy, oh boy, this is wonderful. Don't get lost. That's another good one. And I say that to Charlie, my assistant, pretty much every morning when we hang up the phone. I say, Charlie, don't get lost. And I don't even know if he knows what I mean, but it means don't get lost in life or your direction or anything else, And I say that to Seth, and I say to Nate and Kaylee, it's become a joke around here. I say it to my kids, when my son leaves the house to go to work, say, be great. Don't get lost. He probably thinks I mean don't get lost going to work, but I don't mean that. I mean, don't get lost. Stay focused. Know where your course is. Know what the heading is, and that'll keep you, I think, pretty straight. And God knows I have gotten off course so many times in my life. I don't mean to be preachy, but I think that's a good idea, a good thought to keep in mind, is in writing and production and engineering and mixing, maybe just stay the course. Stay the course. And before I forget, speaking of which, I know that James Koshin is out there, maybe not listening right now, but I got to tell you that those Bucks winning the NBA championship, I got to give a shout out or I will never hear the end of it. So congratulations to my friend and Milwaukee Bucks. They did it. Bucks in 6.
Wow.
Back to Taxi.
Yeah, not bad for a bunch of cheeseheads.
Yeah, they're not really the cheeseheads, but
no, I know, but right.
He's a Packers fan. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers decides. I have to check the news. But anyway, go on.
Is today the announcement of his decision?
I check it every day.
Okay.
I check it every day. I don't know.
I forgot to ask you. I did mention it in the email that went out, and if you can't do it, because I forgot to ask you, are we going to give away a code later on in the show to give away a piece of Final Mix software?
Of course.
Awesome.
And I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm going to tell you what it is because I thought about which one to give away, and I think I've given it all away at some point, but maybe this one I don't think I gave away.
All right. Well, let's not give out the code right now because if we do, half our audience will be over on your website during the show. So tell them what they're going to get, and then we'll give the code away at the very end.
Okay. So one of the things that I found, I get a lot of taxi forwards,
Yeah.
is that sometimes they're just not loud enough. Sometimes the the levels are just way off, and it's getting better. But the quality of the production and the songwriting, it's terrific.
Yeah.
I'm getting great songs. But I think one thing that might help people is this one little box that I have called an M1 limiter light, which is going to get your levels up where they need to be, and it's not going to kill the sound of your record or your mix. And it's really easy to use. There's like one knob on it.
I could even use that. I can use that.
Yeah, that's what it's meant to be. I mean, we use it all the time. If we don't have time to sit there and tweak and we need to send something out, we just throw it on there, get the level up pretty hot, and then, print it and send it out. And it's a really useful tool that way. And I think, in fact, I want every taxi member to have it for free. And so I'll put up this thing and we'll keep it up for, let's say, I don't know, a week or whatever you want me to do, and then give people time to get it and have fun.
Awesome. Thank you. You know what? I completely concur on the level thing. We do, where the A&R staff comes in my office. We haven't been doing it much during COVID, but pre-COVID, we'd get together at least once a quarter, if not more often, and we would go thematic. Like we'd say, okay, everybody kick in a few songs that you think would be good for advertising, or everybody kick in a few great singer-songwriter songs. And we just hang out on a Friday afternoon, pop open some beer for everybody but me, because I just don't like to drink. And we hang out in my office, like 10 of us, and we just listen to the music. And it annoys me. I've got to say, maybe I should adjust my expectations a little bit, but it really annoys me when you hear this level, and the third one is obviously like 8 dBs lower. And then you have to turn it up. And it's not that turning it up is any big deal, but I do remember some A&R guy many years ago, like 30 years ago, said to me, if I've got to turn it up, you've already lost me. And I'm sure that's true when an editor is sitting down trying to choose music to slug into a slot on a TV show and the levels are low. It's not that having incredible levels, I mean, sure, it makes the Fletcher Munson curve kick in and things sound a little better just because of what your ears do to things at higher levels. But it's a comparison
it's such an easy fix.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's just a simple fix. And I think it might give you the little extra thing you need. I mean, I believe in it. We did, a few years ago, we did a taxi road rally day, just talking about levels and mixing and the importance of being competitive, because if two songs are equally good and one is 5 dB louder, it's winning. It just hits a different way. It's it's just a reality. I don't think that there's anyone who can that can deny that. So get the levels up without killing it. You can overload stuff too, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just, get it in the ballpark. Get it right up in there, and excuse me. The get the thing for free. I'll give it to you for free, and roll on.
Do you get all scientific about your levels? How many LUFs and doing math? Because I see a lot of people obsessing about that, and I don't know. I also come from the VU meter era, where I love nothing better than an analog VU meter with a bouncing needle in it. I can look at that, but based on the velocity of the music, the type of music, whether it's like edgy, metally sounding music or acoustic, singer-songwriter stuff, I could look at the meter. I could literally have the monitors turned off, look at the meter, and set my levels because you just get used to it. It's a thing. It's like riding a bike.
I can't do that.
Really, I can absolutely do that. I used to.
Wow.
Here's something I don't think I've ever told you before. It's time for true confessions, but I got so cocky during my Howie Schwartz years. I think I told you my first big jingle in New York was a McDonald's jingle with 30 players live, and I had like Steve Gadd on drums, a bunch of big people in the room, Will Lee on bass, I think. And Michael Small was the arranger, producer, conductor on this thing. And he had everybody in the room. I think there's strings and horns and rhythm section on it. And he said, all right, let's run it down. And they run it down. And Michael Small turns around and says, can you play that back? And I went, no, I thought you were running it down. I was busy getting my sounds and setting my levels. And he goes, you're new in town, right? That was the last time I ever made that mistake. Man, was I embarrassed. Whoa, lost my focus. So
You're right, Michael.
It did, but I had to learn that lesson. And from that point forward, I would set, if I had a big room full of players on a jingle date, I would preset my preamps, my input faders, my EQ, my outboard, everything, and get it so close that if they sat down and did their thing, that it's like, okay, I could print that to tape. I barely had to adjust anything. So maybe
that's just good. That's experience and good engineering.
Right. Yeah.
That's just knowing your instrument. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just good engineering.
I always loved doing that. It was a fun little quiet challenge. I wouldn't even tell my assistant about it. I would just do it and go, okay, can't wait till these guys walk in the room and the string players with their snotty little attitudes sit down and go, tap, 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 is this thing on? And they start playing. And when it comes out of the speakers and it sounds right, I go, yeah, I'm awesome.
Well, when you asked about do I get mathematical with stuff, as a rule, no. Okay. And, but I've had, there was I had a session with Stevie Wonder a couple of years ago, and he said two things to me that I'll never forget. He said, at this point I was de-essing the vocal a little, and he immediately heard it, and he said, don't de-ess the vocal, I like the sibilants.
Wow.
And I thought, so okay. So I took it off, and I said, you know what? I'm going to start listening a little different. Maybe I'm putting that in a little more often than I should. And I realized, you know what? Let me go a little lighter on it because I actually do like the sibilants when I think about it. It's kind of cool and it does something. I like it, So it got me thinking. And then another session, I forget what we were talking about. It doesn't even matter because he said if it sounds good, it is good. If it sounds good, it is good. Wow. Pretty simple stuff,
Yeah.
You know what? You're right about that. If it does sound good, if it sounds good, it is good. Right. That the meters don't have anything to do with it. It really doesn't. He doesn't know what the EQ is doing per se. And you can listen to records all day, and it doesn't matter what EQs were turned. If it sounds good, it's good. Simple. I'm not getting mathematical. Maybe in the old days, you have to do SEMTI calculations and offsets and stuff. But no, in terms of levels and things like that, I mean, you got to. I've mixed, 7,000-8,000 records or something like that, and I got a feel for it. But the bottom line is that wisdom of a world genius. It's just that simple. If it sounds good, it's good. Print it.
Yep.
Print it.
People overthink a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the chat room. I've been trying to ignore it today because I really wanted us to stay focused on what we were talking about and not get sucked into audio stuff so much, which we've been known to do. Actually, I'm going to propose something that you and I should go down a road.
And the Old Town Road?
before I ever met you, back when I was still working in Florida, a guy walked into my studio, not unlike you. His name was Gilbert Montagnier, and
I know that name.
he was a big hit artist in France and in the rest of Europe. He had a song called "The Fool" that went platinum or multi-platinum. Legitimate rock star. Also, not unlike Stevie, blind. He walks into my studio and says, he's French, is Michael Lesko here? I've heard about him. I want to work with you. I want to check out your studio. He was the only guy in my entire career that I ever worked with where I thought, this guy is as talented as Stevie Wonder. And you could take the blindness factor out of both of them. It just, some people literally are born with the gift from God. Maybe that's God's way of repaying them for, I'm taking away your eyesight, but I'm going to give you this other gift that may be even better or something. Anyway, I haven't spoken to Gilbert since 1987. I won't even go, it's too long a story. Bottom line is we reconnected recently, very recently, and it was as if it was 3 weeks ago that we worked together in the studio. I think I produced 3 or 4 songs with him. And then he moved back to France, and we lost touch. Anyway, I've always fantasized about what Gilbert and Stevie would do on a duet together. They would kill it.
Well,
I think I think that we should try and set that up. I think our hair would stand up on our arms, and I love those moments sitting in a control room.
Let's be honest. I don't have that kind of juice.
Yeah, but you could call those people and just say,
Well, I could,
check this out. We'll just send them a link and say, check this out. This is an artist that may be awesome for a duet someday. If Stevie's ever up for it, we can make that happen. Anyway, and leave it at that, see what he says. Anyway, I'm so happy that I've connected with Gilbert, and he actually invited Deb and I to go to one of his concerts over in Asia, I believe mid-November. So I'm very excited. Last time, I only got to see him in concert one time. I knew him as my little buddy in the studio, and we became very close, like a family over a year. And I got to go watch him perform live in front of 20,000 people one time in Nice, I think, in France. And he goes, oh, why don't you mix the songs that you did in the studio with me? And I said, live? I've never done live. And he goes, yeah, you know where all the parts are. And I remember the sound guy behind the board was like, oh, great, some studio jerk going to tell me how to mix live. And when it came time, he just stepped aside, and I put my hands on the faders. I looked like the pilot in the movie Airplane, sweat pouring down my face. I'd never mixed anything live in my face, and there's this thing called feedback.
Oh, my God.
It's like you move a fader in the studio. If you mess it up, no big deal. You move it in a live situation, very big deal. It scared the hell out of me, but it was awesome fun.
Sorry,
Anyway,
I'm getting blasted by the light here. It's killing me, and I'm speaking of sweating. Go ahead.
I'm blinded by the light.
It's like just right through there now.
Oh, that's sunlight.
Taking some questions. That's sunlight coming through.
Yeah, let's do some. Let's do a few questions. Let's see, how much time do we have? We've got 11 minutes, so we need to reserve 2 or 3 minutes at the end to give away the plug-in, which I appreciate you thinking of. All right, if anybody has any questions for Rob, we've got 9 minutes left. We can do it, 10 minutes, whatever. And please, the person that was asking about blockchain, I hope you're gone. The whole first half hour we were on the air, Rob, there was a guy in the chat room kept saying, blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. Okay, here's a question from Darren Moss.
So,
No, don't. What?
Non-fungible tokens, I believe, is what he's getting at, and the way artists are using them today. I can refer you to a world expert on that if Taxi members are interested. We'll see if we can get them on for you, but
I've got several friends from the domain name industry that are into NFTs and blockchain, and they're all buying the Bored Ape And if it looks like a postage stamp with a Bored Ape by a certain artist. And these guys, the day they came out, they paid like $280 a piece for them. And right now they're going for anywhere between like $125,000 and $350,000. So all these guys I know are like celebrating that. Anyway, question. Andre Stepanian said, worst advice, or no, Darren Moss asked, the worst advice that you've ever gotten.
Immediately comes to mind. I was considering two schools. One was, well, I was considering a few, but Berkeley and University of Miami. I went to the University of Miami, and I went to visit Berkeley, and I did an interview with someone there, and he was from Waltham, which is where I was raised. So I felt like, this is the guy I should speak to. And he said something really interesting to me. He said, is there anything else you can do besides music? And I said, well, I really like electrical engineering or physics. I'm interested in both of those. And he said, do it. And
that's funny.
And I left there thinking, well, I guess I made my college choice,
That's
yeah,
really
so
funny.
So that was just weird, and I thought, like, that's not advice, but that's like one of those things, I'll tell you another thing that comes to mind. When I was trying to find a place to begin my journey here in Los Angeles, there were many studios. I just knocked on the doors and called everybody, and there was a studio that said, he eventually called me and said, we need a runner position has opened up and would like to, you're next in line, so if you want it, you got to start tomorrow. And I said, well, at the moment I was mixing Club Nouveau. I was very lucky. Not mixing them, but I was engineering them, and I had committed to them till the end of the week. And I said, well, I'd love to start. Like, this is exactly the studio I wanted to work at. And I said, but I can't. I gave my word to this guy, and I can start Monday, but I can't start before then because I committed to this guy. And he said, well, if you're not, if you can't do it, then I'm just taking you off the list and don't call back, kind of thing. And I said, well, my decision is final. I would think that you'd want to hire a guy that's at least going to do the same for you, because I thought there was just a matter of principle, And he's like, nope, don't call back. And that was the end of that.
Wow.
But it worked out. The Lord works in mysterious ways, because then I did that record and I mixed it and I got my first hit, and then I met countless other people. Who knows?
You met Chucky Booker on that record, right?
I did. I met Craig Burbage. I met I got to work on Teddy Pendergrass. I got to work with the Callaways. I got to work with so many great people. Because one thing led to another. But I remember that, and I feel that was. Maybe it was a test, but I felt like at that moment that was, I felt like I was very sad about it, because I wanted that job. I really wanted to work at that studio. And it hurt me. And I can still kind of feel how disappointed I was and how surprised I was. And, but it ended up being probably the best thing for me,
There are times that I've been desperate to hire somebody for Taxi because somebody else is leaving, and when they give their 2-week notice, it doesn't give you enough time to run ads, interview people, and then get somebody in and get them trained. So you're pretty desperate to find somebody in a really big hurry. But I've got to say, when I find somebody I like and they say, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't upset you, but I've got to give 2 weeks to my other job. It seems only fair. And I have tremendous respect for people that live by that.
Yeah, we're only talking a couple of days, but I understand they needed a guy, but I thought, I don't really want to work for this guy if he's, because the next thing he's going to have no respect for me anyway. When it comes down to it, it's just, I've thought through it. It's come back in years of it's sort of resurfaced in my mind, and I thought, it's just one of those things. But I don't know if I'd put that under the category of bad advice. But
how about advice on panning drums? Andre Stepanian asked that question like 5 minutes ago, and I'd be curious to know. Do you go with your high tom on the left or the high tom on the right? And do you left?
Great question.
Yes. Yes.
No, I said yeah. So the idea is, when I work, it's a little bit different. I have a different approach because I'm a drummer and a musician really first. So if I will usually pan from, if it's an ensemble, meaning string section. Well, there are many ways to set up strings, but traditionally from an audience perspective, is how I would pan them. The violins would be on the left, and followed by the violas, the cellos, the string basses on the right. That's typically the basic orchestral setup. And it tends to be that way even if it's a quartet. You'll have your two violins, your viola, and cello. So if it's an ensemble, I pan from the audience perspective. But if it's a musical instrument, I pan from the musician's perspective. So if it's a drummer, I'm a right-handed drummer, so the hi-hat might be a little off-center. I don't pan it all the way to the left usually. And the toms would be, left to right, as the drummer would sit behind. If it's a piano, the low end tends to be further on the left, and the higher notes tend to be a little bit on the right. So the musician's perspective, if it's an instrument, and if it's an ensemble, I do it from the audience's perspective.
Interesting. I do it from the drummer's perspective as well. In my entire career in the studio, people think, why? Ironically, those songs that I sent you, the living room demos that these guys heard on Taxi TV a week or two ago, I noticed that on those, the drums are opposite, but I had very limited everything. And if I remember correctly, the band was just hating the fact that I had a pan with the high tom on the left. They couldn't handle it, so I switched. And it's still weird to me, 30 years later.
It's probably not a right or wrong on that. It's just that, because I've played, you start playing the drums when you're 6 years old or something, and then all of a sudden you're mixing, and I want to hear it kind of the way I'm used to hearing it. That's really all it is. It's not a right or wrong thing, It's not a big deal. If somebody asks me to reverse the toms, I'll just flip them for them. It's not a big deal.
What mic do you use on a floor tom? I always found it hard to find a good floor tom mic.
You know what? I will tell you what. There's long answer to that question. I'll boil it down really quick. It depends on the style of music and a bunch of other things. First of all, it depends on the sound of the drums. There's a lot of elements that are come to play. But I found that a great Beyerdynamic mics, they clip on it, and there's this little gooseneck thing, and they're like $150 a piece, and those things sound tremendous. Now, I'm not saying those are the end-all tom mics, but for the bang for the buck, there's nothing that can touch them. No question about it. But usually if I go in and I'm going to mic up a drum kit, if it's like, if I want an open type sound, I'll put FET 47s on the tom. That's my favorite tom mic.
Wow.
I'll use a C12A on a snare. But most studios get very nervous when you do that because of the price of the mic. But, drummers are good, and, it's what I like, Other times, sometimes I used to use 421s on the toms. I hate SM57s.
I know you do. That's the one thing you and I do not agree on.
I don't even like them on a talkback.
Wow.
There's just a certain tone to them I just can't stand.
That is so funny.
Yeah. It's funny, haha.
Well, now you got to listen to those two songs I sent you, because
I will.
Barry,
let me give you a shout out, because I know you working an SM57 is different than me working a 57. And this guy, people may know Barry Rudolph because he's a he's a great many people don't know how great he is as an engineer. Okay, he did like Sarah Smile and Hall & Oates and like massively successful hits back in the day. One of my favorite people in the world, good guy. And he told me he used 57s on everything, and I was like, "What?" Like, that's one of my favorite sounding records of all time. You know, in his hands, it's a different thing because he approaches it different, and that's his thing. You know, and if my life depended on it, I'm not going to get that sound. It's just I take a different approach. You know, and you're the same way. You know,
Yeah.
you probably have a way that you use it that works great. It's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I just, on a snare, I do that.
Yeah.
On a Fender Twin with a Strat going through it, I put it right up to probably an inch outside of where the speaker coil is, right up to the grill.
I just bought a Neumann TLM 102 because I like the sound of it on, you know, the Vox AC30.
Right.
So if I put a 57 on, if I even see the 57, I'm like, where's the assistant engineer so I can shoot him? You know?
Check out, when you listen to that thing, I literally had a Vox AC30 that I had to put on a chair because it just didn't sound good on the floor. And it was a 57 right on it. And I think I used 421s. I used a 57 on the snare, 421 on the kick. Oh, and a pair of 58s doing this about 2 feet back from the tom-toms, looking down at the front rim of the tom-tom as you're facing.
Those are your overhead mics, or those are the tom mics?
Those were my toms and my overheads because I didn't have enough mics to go around. So I knew that the cymbals would bleed into the 58, so I aimed the 58s down at the tom, at the front edge of the tom at about, 30-degree angle. And the bleed from the cymbals actually worked out better than a lot of times when I've done good overhead miking. I couldn't believe it.
Well, there you go.
Right. If it sounds right, if it sounds good, there you go.
Yeah, and another thing is people are shocked. I had a meeting. I mentioned that that artist that was discovered through Taxi. Bud Harner's artist. I can't.
Lindsay Webster. We were just talking about her.
Yes, yes, wonderful people. And he asked me, you know, he asked me a question. It was about microphones and stuff. And oh, you were just talking about it. I lost my train of thought. Darn, this is a really good thing too. I had a great point to make. Maybe just to me, of course, but in my own mind. What were you just saying about the microphones and the?
That I used a pair of 58s on the toms doing that, and if it sounds good, go with it, which was what you were saying before we got into the whole microphone thing.
Yeah, and, you know, we had a conversation about sample rates, you know, 47, 48, 44.1 or 48 or, you know, 96 or all this stuff, you know. And he asked me, you know, what about sample rates? And I said, you know, I'm going to say something that you're just not going to probably like. He said, what? He said, what, 44.1? I said, yeah, you know, not only 44.1, but sometimes I go 16-bit on all the drums. You know, I happen to like some of the crunch. And
wow.
A lot of my friends, you know, convert to 16-bit or put a bit reducer on the drums. So there's another little tidbit if people are, you know, may want to try. You know, it adds a little something, you know, just because it's not everything's got to be high fidelity. I mean, not everything has to be this perfect fidelity recordings, you know. And some of the biggest hits I had, people would, you know, I did an interview in Mix Magazine many years ago, and I think one of the question was, what did you put on the bass? And it was one of those 160X and one knob squeezer things, you know. Like, what? I said, you know, it was a Moog bass, and it sounded wicked, you know. It was distorted, I overloaded, and it sounded really cool, you know. Okay, so what? I read an article about Crystal Ordals many years ago. It might have been Tom, but he said like he used 4 compressors on some vocal or something. I'm like, that vocal sound is wicked. I'm like, wow, how did he ever do that? And it's like, to this day, I mean, I listen to some of his work and, you know, other guys, and I'm like, wow, you know, sometimes, you know, you do the weirdest thing and it just sounds cool.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, you know, whether it's a 57 or a C12A, if it works for the song, if it sounds right with the kit, if it's the vibe, you know, I mean, if it sounds good, it's good. Go listen to Louie Louie or Crimson and Clover or some of those records.
Absolutely.
There's magic there, and whatever mic they use, it's like, come on, man, that's just so vibey. It sounds so cool.
Listen to the Motown stuff. It sounds like crap and it's magical at the same time. If you isolated every instrument, it would sound like crap. You put them all together. We
did a taxi thing. We brought in the Motown Masters one year, and we played Marvin Gaye, and we played some Bob Marley, and we played some Beatles and stuff. And you hear the song, and it sounds amazing. And then you isolate the track, and it's like, I asked anyone, how many of y'all would like auto-tune that? Every hand goes up. Like, your instinct is to make it perfect, but maybe, just maybe, the imperfections, are okay.
Yep.
So, well. Interesting. Whoops.
Hold
on a second. I got to switch glasses again.
Oh, wow. Number 3.
4.
I've got to run because I actually have another meeting that started a minute ago on a Zoom somewhere. Oh, yes, the code. Okay, so move it more under your nose because it's cutting off because we're on split screen.
Oh, come on,
man. No, it is. They can't see it. It's the word love. Love, love, love. Boom, boom, boom. So go to finalmix.biz, B-I-Z, finalmix.biz, not finalmix.com, because if you go there, you see Rob looking very dapper in his glasses and all that. Go to finalmix.biz, where he sells awesome plugins, which I've got on my DAW, and I love them. And especially, I can't tell you what I think it's a clone of, because no. Anyway, there's an equalizer he's got in there that's got some red and blue stuff on it that I love. And I love the
not a clone.
Right, not a clone. I love the Westlake EQ. Sounds really good.
But this is the M1 limiter light. So make sure when you go to checkout, okay? When you go to checkout, make sure you put this in the code box and hit apply code. You have to hit the button to apply the discount, and it will say $0.00. Do not check out unless it's 0.
Yeah.
I'm giving it away for free, but if you forget to hit it, don't email and expect like someone's going to like take 15 minutes and generate a refund. Can't do it because I go crazy. Please just take an extra moment, make sure you hit the apply code button, and it'll be free.
People do screw that up, and then they reach out to Taxi and say, "Can you guys get me a refund? I paid for it by mistake." And there's no way, I'm telling you now, there's no way I'm calling Rob and saying, "Oh, Rob, can't you please help this person out?" He's a busy guy. We're best friends and we barely talk. We see each other on 4th of July and New Year's Eve, and we live 4 houses from each other.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, the thing is cheap anyway. It's $19, but the idea is, I'd like everybody to have it. It's free. I don't want to get on. I don't want to start issuing refunds and spend my afternoon doing that. I hope everybody, understands that. But yeah, enjoy it. And
thank you, Rob. I appreciate you taking this time and coming back again today after yesterday's meltdown with all the tech stuff. I know.
My pleasure. Always.
Unbelievably busy you are. Give my love to the fam. Both of my daughters are going to be in town. One of them arrived today, and the other one is arriving Monday. So we're going to have both kids in town for an overlap of 6 days, and my mother-in-law is coming tonight.
All right.
Yeah, I hope you have an extra couch somewhere in your house. Now, she and I get along fine. It's just,
Okay.
Anyway, if you open up your window and you hear screaming, now we've never had a screaming fight, only passive-aggressive arguments. Anyway, thank you, Rob. I will see you soon. Michael. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for taking the time, and adios, my friend. Bye-bye. And I will see you guys Thursday on Quarantini Happy Hour. Adios. Good night. The Fade.